Now on Up North Live News at 6. A former employee at Harbor Hall filed a lawsuit last month against the Northern Michigan nonprofit. We outline the allegations.
It was a bad idea when it was first proposed.
More than 100 protesters gathered on Mackinac Island today to bring their concerns about Line 5 directly to state leaders, what they said and the response from Enbridge. Plus, the state holds its second PFAS meeting in Cadillac, the message they had for residents in probable hotspots. And a preview of the Heritage Alliance boat auction this weekend, a look at the programs that benefit from the money raised.
This is Up North Live News at 6 on 7 and 4.
A former employee at Harbor Hall filed a lawsuit last month against the nonprofit. Harbor Hall is an addiction treatment center in Emmett County. The lawsuit claims there was a pattern of sexual harassment, retaliation, and fraud at the facility. Our Allie Baxter looked into the lawsuit. She joins us live now from the Content Center. Allie, who is involved in this lawsuit?
Yeah, Maya, Holly Peterson Wood filed this lawsuit. She's the former chief financial officer. There are 3 defendants: Harbor Hall, its former CEO, Peter Bucci, and its board president.
The mission behind Harbor Hall is very near and dear to my heart. I loved my job. I loved what we did, what they do for the clients. And I think Jerrica said there has to be accountability.
An addiction treatment facility in Harbor Springs is at the center of a federal lawsuit filed in April. Part of the lawsuit alleges former CEO Peter Bucci sexually harassed Harbor Hall staff.
This isn't sort of like woman is upset about workplace conditions only, although that is certainly an aspect of it. But, you know, the concern both with the harassment and then also with public money, you know, Medicare, Medicaid money, and how that's being used.
According to the lawsuit, former CFO Holly Peterson Wood uncovered a healthcare fraud scheme at the facility. Holly said it involved fraudulent billing through third-party labs. The lawsuit says at the time, the scheme was being investigated by the Department of Justice in another area. But when Holly brought it to Harbor Hall board members' attention, she claims they were dismissive.
And literally, I'm not even sure they read my material. And in one sentence from Peter Bucci, they dismissed all of it.
Holly says a few days after her presentation to the board, Peter Bucci was promoted to CEO by board members. Holly says the board also made the decision to make Bucci responsible for human resources, a decision she alleges and outlined in the lawsuit that the board made knowing Bucci had been accused of sexual harassment.
To love those clients and to see their personal growth and their rehabilitation becomes more than a job, it becomes a mission. And it's hard when there's internal conflict going on and toxicity that does not align with the mission statement presented to the community and to the clients. And when you're not abiding by your own charter, your own mission statement, it becomes a breeding ground for lack of accountability.
Jerrica Kiley was a billing and credentialing specialist at Harbor Hall and left the company voluntarily last year. She says when Bucci was promoted, staff became fearful of retaliation if they said anything negative about him.
The environment made you question your own reality and your own evidence at times. We had black and white information as to what policies or procedures we should or should not abide by, and we were still told no.
We were working under Peter's rules.
Holly explained she made the decision to file this lawsuit to hold Harbor Hall accountable to being a safe workplace, not just for staff, but for clients entering treatment.
The story can be told and the facts can come out in the court, and the truth can be heard on what happened.
Holly's attorney says more witnesses have come forward since the lawsuit was filed. I reached out to Peter Bucci and Harbor Hall's attorneys for comment. No one provided a statement by the deadline. Attorneys for Harbor Hall did respond to the lawsuit in a legal filing. They denied all the allegations. Live in the Content Center, Allie Baxter, back to you.
Missing woman from Boyne City has been found dead in Defiance County, Ohio. An investigation began on Monday when the Defiance Police Department responded to a report of a dog left unattended in a vehicle. Police say they learned the vehicle belonged to a missing and endangered person out of Boyne City. Tuesday, officers from the Defiance Police Department said a fisherman alerted authorities about a body found on an island near Riverside Park. The body was recovered and identified as 57-year-old Kristen Bates of Boyne City. Police say the case is under investigation pending an autopsy.
More than 100 protesters gathered on Mackinac Island today to bring their concerns about Line 5 directly to state leaders who are there for the annual Mackinac Policy Conference. UpNorthLive's Daniel Zivian followed the march down Main Street.
On the front porch of the Grand Hotel, government and business go hand in hand at the Mackinac Policy Conference. Half a mile away, protesters are getting ready to march, calling for state leaders to stop the Line 5 tunnel projects pending approval. The Oil and Water Don't Mix Coalition says the whole pipeline needs to go.
It was a bad idea when it was first proposed. It's been a bad idea to keep the tunnel going past its life expectancy, and we're already well past that. And doing it during the policy conference was a good plan, I think, because so many people are here, decision makers, lawmakers, and we can get their attention.
Yeah, we'll have a Standing Rock right here in Michigan, which is what we've been trying to avoid for years now. But if it comes down to that, we will have to, the people will speak up if we're ignored by our legislators.
We reached out to Enbridge and received a statement saying in part, quote, Enbridge recognizes people's right to express their views legally and peacefully and to engage in peaceful demonstrations. Our preference is always to seek to resolve differences of opinion through dialogue, peacefully and respectfully. Our pipeline is in full compliance with the federal laws and regulations that apply to our business. Safety and the protection of the Great Lakes waters and the people who use them are our focus. The march made it as far as the Gatehouse restaurant before being stopped, first by private security of the Grand Hotel and then by seasonal police officers who barred the protesters from crossing to the school district property. Their rally was ultimately held down at the shore. On Mackinac Island, I'm Daniel Zivian reporting.
We also reached out to the governor's office for comment, but did not hear back in time for air. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is expected to release their draft environmental impact statement on the tunnel tomorrow.
As the Mackinac Policy Conference continues tonight, state leaders unveiled a new public-private partnership with the state's largest utilities. The state says Consumers Energy and DTE will join forces to create and retain what they describe as good-paying jobs, bolster manufacturing, and clean energy production. The utilities reportedly committing to $3.5 billion in annual spending to buy new tech, equipment, and services from Michigan-based suppliers. Some officials call the team effort historic, focused on building up local supply chains for critical energy infrastructure and new technology. The lieutenant governor says the effort will ensure Michigan remains a hub of innovation and industry.
State officials hosted a second PFAS town hall in Cadillac to further address concerns from residents. Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy invited the community to discuss current PFAS data. Eagle and MPART talked about the multiple products PFAS can come from, such as carpet cleaners, food packaging, and stain and waterproof resistant materials. MPART says no community has ever self-tested as much as the residents around Cadillac. Residents were able to ask questions about how MPART and Eagle are testing for PFAS, along with how to reduce exposure, if they should stay on water filters, and if PFAS contamination is common for other areas as well. MPART says they have 335 PFAS sites across the state.
In this particular case, this is different. This is a different scenario than what we've done. But what we have seen in a lot of other places that have done some self-sampling is you will get random hits that don't really necessarily make any sense. And so that's why we're really going to use the lessons learned from this particular situation to look at other communities to see what else we've got. We'd love to get that data.
The state health department recommends that everyone get their water tested, get filtration from the health department, and connect to municipal water if possible. A PFAS hotline for anyone with any water contamination concerns has been set up. We'll post the number with this story on our website, UpNorthLive.com.
When people think of Michigan, for many, the Great Lakes may be one of the first things that comes to mind. The Great Lakes also have a lot of history and beauty that everyone can enjoy. UpNorthLive's Mary Jane Glenn spent the day with an organization that wants to make the lakes more accessible for all.
The Maritime Heritage Alliance is a nonprofit organization that works towards teaching more about the lakes around you. To do this, they have an annual boat auction and thrift sale where you can collect gear you may need while out on the lake.
A lot of the accessibility up here is the cost of it's even the cost of getting out on the water here. In this region, it's become incredibly expensive to have a slip if you can find one, and the waiting list is years long. So I think it's really important for people to be able to develop their own experiences out on the water, because that also connects people to history in their own way.
And each boat has its own story to tell. Everything being auctioned off was donated by community members.
One is named Final Effort, and it is a wooden catboat, a little boat, very manageable. But it was built by a gentleman in Harbor Springs who started it when he was 98 and finished it at 100 years old.
The profits made will go towards keeping their programs alive. Those programs are conducted on a 92-foot schooner named Madeline and a 38-foot Concordia cutter named Champion.
One of my proudest things we do with Madeline is we go out several times a week on the boat. We take passengers. We do not charge anything. We don't have a license for hire, so it's really, we invite the community to come with up to 3 or 4 guests and come for a sail on the boat.
Grand Traverse County, Mary Jane Glenn, UpNorthLive News.
And the Maritime Heritage Alliance has a new location on Cass Road in Traverse City. The auction and sale will be there this Saturday. Bidder registration and the thrift store will open at 9 a.m. The auction starts at 10.
The former Wexford County Jail will soon be getting revitalized to serve another purpose. The Planning Commission approved a special land use permit to Cornerstone Ministries to turn the former jail into a church. Pastor Troy Baxter says he intends on keeping the existing building, but renovating it to accommodate a chapel with more than 100 seats, fellowship meeting space, areas for classes, and a nursery. The church will also use the original jail kitchen. The current garage area will house the Mentoring of Skilled Trades, or MOST program.
Yeah, it's quite the story. You know, we'll have to deal with a lot of the stuff that are, I say, get rid of the ugly, and we're going to bring some color in and some entryway and dress it up, nice presentation. But the building is very strong, and it was well maintained, so everything worked when we walked in.
And Baxter says he has already started on renovations and plans to have the church ready by the end of this year. The Mansalona Bass Festival is underway in Antrim County. A look at the events you can enjoy coming up on UpNorthLive News at 6.
We'll take a look at the weather forecast for that and another round of showers, maybe a few storms tomorrow. All that after the break.
I'm Jada Johnson from Big Boys TV, and the Fish and Game Report is sponsored by Johnson's Propane.